Hey everybody, welcome to episode 127 of The Wellness Woman. In today's episode, I have my friend Maddie joining us here on the podcast after 2 years. So I've shared her first episode with me in the show notes. And if you don't know her channel on YouTube, Let's Eat Plants, then you really want to check it out. She is all about food prep, making it easy in the kitchen, and keeping it healthy. In the last 2 years, she had a lot of adventures, including becoming a mom, now navigating life with a little one, but also health scares she will share about in the episode. Now, before we get into this, I want to give a big thank you and shout out to Nama Well for the J2 juicer, really a cold press juicer that gives you the most of your produce when you use it because it squeezes out everything. I've been using it since 2021 and I absolutely love it. I use it weekly for my green juices that I drink daily. They also have the C2, which has a blender attachment, and a new machine that makes milk, which are barista quality. So if you want to check it out and save 10%, everything is in the show notes. Also, a great thank you and shout out to Lumen, the metabolic tracker that allowed me to understand my body so much better. Now I know how stress impacts me, food, and everything in between. So if you want to learn a little more about this little tool, but also how to actually use it and maybe biohack a little bit your day-to-day, this is a great one to check out. Please check the show notes. Also, big thank you to NewZest. NewZest is a brand that I use for protein powders as well as the Good Green Vitality, which is a green powder, which basically is a supplement, which instead of pills comes in powders and has a lot of food in it and a lot of ingredients that can just help support a very healthy diet already, because you know what, there is no silver bullet, and so this is just a beautiful way to help the body get a little more. If you want to know more, again, you can get 15% with my discount code in the show notes. Enjoy. All right, guys, without further ado, let's get into this. I am so excited about welcoming Maddie back. Let's do it. Hi, Maddie. Welcome to the Wellness Woman podcast. I'm so excited to have you here today. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. This is such a delight.
Yeah, I'm so happy too. And you've been here before on The Green Life, actually, when it was titled The Green Life. And we had such a good conversation because, as you know, I love your channel. You've been always very inspiring about creating content that can really help people. And I think that's valuable, especially in the age where everybody's kind of distracted. Long format is being more and more demonized, although I think a lot of people are actually awakening to the fact that we need more long content, even when it comes to things like food prep, just to enjoy, being there with the food, like mindfully connecting to what we're eating. And then that I feel like is really important. But also you then had a bit of a period where you were offline. So we're going to talk all about this, but I want to first go into maybe a little intro about you, because if people haven't watched the other episode and they haven't watched your channel, which we will link in the show notes, then maybe a little intro about your work and how you got into this.
Sure. Well, my channel is called Let's Eat Plants, and I help vegans or even plant-curious people save time and eat healthier with meal prep, because I just feel that meal prep is one of the best ways to get people easily eating healthy. And it's like definitely changed my life, and I hope it can help change other people's lives, because it's just such a great tool that I think people overlook, because when they hear meal prep, they think, they're eating like maybe one little meal, the same meal every single day for a few days in a row. And it's really so much more varied than that. You can eat different meals every day. It's really just about setting yourself up to have some prepped ingredients for a healthy week. Prep your veggies, chop a couple things in advance so that when you open your fridge, you're like, oh, look at all these mushrooms and, whatever bok choy I have to eat. Let me just cook that up instead of ordering takeout, because if it's already prepped and ready to go, you're much more likely to eat it. So that's kind of my mission, is to just help people get that into their lives and just help it be part of their routine.
Nice. And now, how long have you been vegan for?
Oh gosh, since, I started in 2017, but I say officially it was like January of 2018, because that's when my husband and I moved to Canada, and it was just much simpler. We were traveling in 2017. We did like a big world tour kind of thing. We had been living in Asia, so we were like, before we move back to North America, let's go do one big travel thing. So it was a little bit challenging when you're like brand new vegan and you don't really know anything about being vegan to be in these like really remote places and try to be vegan. So I say that technically it started in January 2018.
Amazing. And I'm gonna link the episode we recorded before because you actually gave the full story, even how you met your husband. That was really cool.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
so yeah, the people can listen to that. Well, that was such a good episode. And
Oh,
in the meantime, you also became a mom.
I did, yes. Very
And so
recently.
yeah,
Almost 2 years ago, she's turning 2 in like
I
a month.
can't believe it.
I
I
can't
can't
believe
believe it. Like I
it.
remember slowly, like I remember seeing your videos and then thinking, she's pregnant. And
You know, I was pregnant when we did our last
yeah,
episode together.
yeah. And then you announced it after a while when the
Yeah,
bump could not be hidden anymore. But it was
exactly.
really, yeah, it was great. And then so you carried on, obviously being my mom now, you are looking at things a little bit differently because now
Yeah.
you're feeding not just you and your husband, but also a toddler who has requirements that are slightly different.
Yes.
So maybe we can go into that first, or do you prefer going into your health scare that you had? Because we didn't see you online for a while, and then when you came back, you explained what happened.
Sure.
So I mean, we can do it in parallel because actually that happened in tandem, isn't it?
True. Yeah.
So yeah, how was the pregnancy for you being on a plant-based diet?
It was actually fine. You know what? I'm in Canada and I feel very lucky that all the doctors here have been very supportive. I know in other places it may not be the case. And it also just depends on which doctor you get, of
Hmm.
course. But both my regular primary care doctor and my OB were both very supportive. And, they said basically as long as your blood levels, everything looks okay, then we're fine with it. Towards the end of my pregnancy, my iron got a bit low, which actually happens to a lot of women, regardless of being plant based or
Hmm.
not. So they just had me on an iron supplement for a while. And then everything else was fine. I'm also a little bit older. So I think that in the US, they have that as a concern as well. Like older moms, they have extra precautions. But my doctor said, everything looks healthy with you. So that didn't even come up, even though my advanced maternal age would be an issue in other places. It wasn't here. And so I think that maybe it could be because I eat so healthy. I'm not sure, but I feel lucky that I had a very smooth, healthy pregnancy.
Yeah, that is
Yeah.
awesome because at the moment you see the camps online that are very divided and
Hmm.
divisive. And we have, like, oh, you can't be pregnant if you don't eat meat because you need iron. And I mean, even this, I'm gonna plug it in. 100 grams of meat, of red meat, will have less iron than 100 grams of lentils.
Right?
So I'm like, can we just not talk about iron as if we can't get it
Right?
anywhere else?
Yeah.
So
And like if that were true, then no pregnant woman who eats a regular diet would ever get iron deficiency. But all these women are getting it
yeah,
regardless of what they eat. So obviously it's,
yeah,
can be
exactly. A little
yeah.
propaganda right there. And
Hmm.
you obviously probably being online, you have to navigate being exposed to people making comments, and there are some horrible channels out there.
Hmm.
I'm gonna actually mention this woman who I came across her by chance because remember I put you in touch with Erin from Eat
Mm.
Rest because she had also plant-based pregnancies, so she is very well. I mean, she had three, so she's very well,
Yeah.
exercised in that.
Yes,
And
definitely.
I remember, and I was looking for one of her videos, and I came across this video called by a terrible video by vegan deterioration.
Okay.
So she has created a channel just bashing other people, and which is like so negative. I mean,
So weird.
but why would you do that? But also, like, she maintains, and I don't know what she looks like. I don't know what she eats. I didn't look at her channel. I just saw that, and I thought, wow, I was really shocked. But she bashes basically mothers, and she maintains that children should not be vegan. Although we actually have all the guidelines that show that that's not the case.
Right.
How do you come across people that perhaps online have been demonizing what you're doing and perhaps even, attacking you slightly?
Yes, definitely. I'll get those, few and far between comments. Luckily, I have a very supportive community, and I've even seen like if people make a negative comment on my video, someone in my community will usually come in and like defend it. And with YouTube, there's also ways to like just delete the comments if it's really out of control.
Hmm.
I don't like to do that unless it's something, offensive. Because, people are allowed to have their own opinions. And a lot of the people, they sound so uneducated actually when they make silly comments like that are not based on anything other than their opinion. It's like, you're not seeing my doctor. How would you have any idea whether or not my child is healthy or I'm healthy? Like
Yeah.
it's really, I think that every person should follow their doctor and their, prescribed path, right, from them. So I just think it's so silly when people do that. But, like, I think that now that my daughter's getting older, I'm definitely a bit more weary about showing her as much because I know that people use a child's appearance to post negative comments that are health related when it's the two are obviously unrelated, but people will say, oh, your kid is too skinny or malnourished or whatever like that. So I'm a lot more wary about showing her as much, and that is definitely part of the reason, is because of just the negative comments that can happen from it, and people saying negative things about veganism when they would have no idea. They're just basing it on how somebody looks, which is so silly.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's
Yeah.
it's funny because a lot of the people on the other camp, I'm not even talking about omnivores in general, but like
Mm.
also people that are like on the carnivore, making comments about vegans, but then we see some of them are looking extremely old and inflamed. Actually, I the word that comes to me is inflamed because I just look at the skin and they just look really inflamed.
Hmm.
And it's, and you don't want to get into a game of we bash each other because I mean
Right.
that we don't want to play that game. That's not it.
Right.
Like, and also when somebody follows a certain diet that I know scientifically doesn't support longevity and
Right.
long term might actually cause issues. All I want to do is be like, look, just learn, be open to learning. But I feel like a lot of people just want to stick to their camp and not be open to actually making changes. And I mean, some of them have, like we had a Saladino, Paul Saladino was the first carnivore that was making it popular, and he has
Mm.
changed a lot of his, he's not perfect. No, it's not even adequate, let's just say. But let's just say he changed a lot. Like he wasn't having any
Mm.
fruit, and then he introduced fruit. He wasn't having anything but meat, and
Mm.
then he changed a little bit.
Yeah.
And and it's like be open to the fact that long term there are consequences when we are starving the microbiome. And I think
Yeah.
a lot of people need to really learn how to understand how to eat plants, especially if they have
Absolutely.
a damaged microbiome and they don't
Yeah.
cannot digest perhaps at the beginning, or well, we don't digest fiber, but our microbiome, the bacteria doesn't digest the fiber, doesn't work because there's not enough variety into our gut, right? So,
Right.
and there's like this I mean there's so much information online, you would think everybody
Yes.
knows.
Well, that's
um
the thing. I actually get worried sometimes because there's so much information on every spectrum. Like really, if you went down a rabbit hole on different diets, there's almost supporting evidence for every different diet out there. And so even I myself, I like to stay open-minded about, like we can't preach open-mindedness and not stay open-minded
mhm.
ourselves. So of course I'd be open-minded to if new research came out. But that's one of the reasons I've always loved Dr. Greger. I do believe that his scientific research is very just factual, science based. I don't think he has an agenda. I don't think he's out there pushing veganism because he loves being vegan. He's just basing it on the science facts. And that's what I've always gravitated towards with him. It's just follow this scientifically backed this evidence, and these are what will help you live a long, healthy life, right?
Yeah, I'm actually going to make a comment here.
Hmm.
I always say I'm very happy that the evidence supports a plant-based diet for our health
Hmm.
and longevity. Because the thing is, I am vegan
Hmm.
by for the ethics too. So
Same.
the problem would be that if somebody said tomorrow, actually a plant-based diet will, I'm gonna have to find a way around it because I cannot,
Same.
right? So
Same. I know. I like if someone said you need to eat fish tomorrow, I'd be like, nope, sorry. Let's
yeah.
like, what else? How about a fish, like a an algae supplement instead, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm the same way.
And this is one thing I'm happy that we can clarify because online I see a lot of people that are not vegan. They are
Hmm.
plant-based, and I think we need to just show the difference. You are very well educated in this because again, you follow Dr. Gregor quite a lot. You've been mentioning quite in especially the beginning of your journey, you were
Mm.
following his advice and suggestions. So
Mm.
maybe I'll let you explain the difference between the plant-based diet and the vegan diet.
Sure. And one other thing, actually, that you were saying about the comments is so funny. I did see there used to be like a meme circulating around that was, I think it's a YouTuber called the Vegan Zombie, and people would just rip on his appearance and say, you don't look healthy, whatever. And someone commented, like, hey, man, you look like you're 35 or whatever. And he replied, he said, thank you, because I'm actually 40. Something like that. People think we look so much older, but we're actually old and we look really great for our age, I
Yeah.
think.
Exactly. Nice
It's
one.
because of the vegan diet. We're actually aging in reverse, hopefully.
Yep. I'll take that one.
um, Yeah. So, yes, the difference between vegan and plant-based. So, I think the broad general terms are that vegan is against any animal exploitation. It could be related to food. We don't eat any animal products or byproducts, including things like honey, nothing related to an animal at all. But it goes beyond diet. We don't wear leather. We don't go to zoos. We don't do anything that exploits animals in any way with food or outside of it. And then plant based is just more eating a diet that consists of plants. And I've even heard, there's other categories inside of that. There's something called whole food plant based, where you're eating, whole sources of the food instead of processed plant based foods. A lot of whole food plant based eaters don't eat any oil because they're processed to get those refined ingredients. So there's definitely different spectrums of vegan. I think is all encompassed, or maybe it's all encompassed by plant-based, and then there's
Yeah.
whole food plant-based, there's vegan, and even flexitarian, people who like eat mostly plant-based, but maybe they eat some animal products here and there.
Yeah, thank you for explaining that. And so
Mm.
your channel, for those that don't know it yet, is basically a vegan whole food plant-based. You are, for the most part, very much whole food, and then you will have sometimes products that are vegan but can be prepackaged. But I think you're very
Yeah.
mindful about sharing when they are treats and then not your daily. And I think it's
Right.
important because, of course you might like the pretzels or something. I know that's your favorite snack with hummus. And you see, I am totally following.
I would say
And
I've definitely loosened up
yeah,
over the time. I think that when I started out, it was very following Dr. Greger and very strict, and there's a lot of preaching about no oil and everything. And I think that I also had weight to lose at that
mhm,
time, and I was a lot more health conscious, just in terms of, I guess, appearance, I would say, more so than really health. It was like, oh, I need to lose weight. What's the fastest, easiest way to do that on a vegan
mhm.
diet? I think it is to be whole food plant based. It's just very like cutting out oil is a great way to lose weight. If you are looking to lose some extra pounds, I always tell people it's just empty calories, right?
Mhm.
Now I'm in a stage in my life where that's not really my focus. So I do incorporate recipes, especially with having a little kid. I think that it's not as important. They actually do need some fat as well. I still prefer to do whole food sources of fat for her over oil, but muffins with oils in them is not as big of a deal to me. I want her to make sure she's getting calories and fat as well. And I think that those treats even can be incorporated in an adult's healthy diet as well, as long as it's not like you're eating, those kinds of things for every single meal. Like I don't eat a lot of oil, but I don't avoid it like the plague anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, you made a very good point, and especially because yeah, children need more calories, and sometimes the easiest way is indeed adding oil because they don't
right.
eat a lot.
Exactly. They
And
do
so
not.
you gotta just push in there, like, and it's much easier for a toddler to consume oil on a meal, even if it's not a lot of
Exactly.
it, than even butter, like peanut butter or something, because it's much more
Exactly.
dense. So we parents, I think, have to really think about this, this oil currency being really positive for the little ones. And
Yes.
in terms of are you still breastfeeding?
I am. I'm planning to stop after 2 years old. I don't know why. It was just like that was kind of in my mind as like the milestone. And so that's hopefully the plan. We'll see after she turns 2. I'm a little bit nervous about it, but I would like to hopefully wean after 2. Yeah.
But she already eats some solids, right?
Oh yeah, I mean she's been eating solids since 6 months. We started
Okay.
her on purees. Her teeth came in really slowly compared to I
Oh,
think most kids her age. So took me a little longer to be more comfortable with giving her like crunchy things. But now she has like 4 molars, 4 out of the 8, I believe. So she can chew a lot more easily. So she eats basically everything that we eat. She just uses breast milk for comfort still.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I
And I
think
mean, there are, of course, nutrients in it, and like that's important as well. So,
yeah, exactly. And I
yeah.
think maybe allowing her to also work with you as to when she's ready,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's nice
That's a good
to, I mean,
point.
although I know it's a commitment, but because she's eating as well, it's not
Hmm.
every meal, so that could be,
Right.
it's easier.
Yes.
Um, and so she's a baby that was made on plants, and she eats plants. So, how do you feel when people say, "Oh, you shouldn't tell your children what to eat; they should make it their own choice"? What's your view on this now versus later?
I think that's so interesting because literally every parent tells their child what to eat, whether they think they're telling them or not. We are the ones serving their food, right? We are the ones modeling what we eat and they watch us eat, like that is literally telling your child what to eat. We have actually backlash from friends and family sometimes who are like, oh, let them choose by themselves. I'm like, she's 2 years old. She, of course, no one would let a 2 year old feed themselves. A 2 year old would just choose cake or candy or whatever, all the unhealthy things. Every parent is going to guide their children and make the food that they think is the healthiest for them. So that's what we're doing as well. We're no different than any other parent in that respect. I'm going to follow her doctor's guidelines and make sure she's getting a balanced variety of nutrients. The only thing I will say about doctors is they don't always know a lot about nutrition. So you definitely, even our doctor has admitted, he'll say, like I'll help you look up foods that are high in iron because I know kids need iron, or I'll help you look up foods that are high in calcium because I know kids need calcium. He knows he's not super well versed in nutrition, so don't always listen to your doctors in terms of
Mhm.
nutrition because they don't get a lot of training on it.
Yeah.
But definitely listen to them in terms of what the kids need, what the nutrient is that they need, right? And you can always do your own research on how do I get plant-based sources of calcium or iron. Everyone thinks that calcium comes from milk. Actually, there are so many plant-based sources that are much higher in calcium than milk. It's so mind-boggling once you start doing the research.
That is true. And I'm gonna plug a book that I think every parent should get. I have it in front of me. So by Brenda Davis RD. She's Canadian, right?
Yeah,
And she
yeah.
wrote Nourish, and Nourish is actually for
Oh,
families.
okay.
So all the new like the nutritional guidelines in there are for actual parents and children, so that children can eat really, really healthily and meet all their requirements. So it's been proven obviously that it's doable. It's and this book is fantastic. It's really a good parent guide when parents want to be plant-based.
Mm,
But also especially when if she starts going to school, that's going to be more of the
yes,
challenge, right? How
definitely.
I don't know if you're already planning about how to navigate that one.
I'm a bit nervous, for things like I think school will be okay. Actually, we live in a pretty diverse community in that there's a lot of different ethnic backgrounds.
Mm.
So there's a lot of Indian backgrounds here as well. And I know that a lot of Indians eat vegetarian. So I don't think it's going to be a huge deal actually at school. I'm more worried about social situations like birthday parties, kids' parties, things like that. I've just seen with other vegan mom creators that they often bring their kids their own cupcake so that they can join in the cupcake part, or their own pizza or something like that. And they kind of match the food that's going to be served at the party and just bring a vegan version so that their kids don't feel left out, which I think is a pretty good idea. Like I don't want to force my daughter when she's older to eat in a certain way other than with health, right? Like my concern is kind of her health. If she wants to experiment and like eat certain foods, it's as she gets older, it's going to be harder for me to stop her. And I don't want to force her to do something that makes her hate veganism, of course. But I just think that by us guiding her in these formative years, she will be more likely to stay in the vegan path in general, just because that's how she's grown up eating and that's will be what's normal for her.
Yeah, you made me think about this conversation that I had with Dr. Furman, because his
Mm.
children were raised obviously on a nutritarian diet, which is
Hmm.
he changed a little bit his mind about the benefits of some non-plant food like fish. However,
Okay.
he doesn't eat it. He doesn't recommend it either because of the heavy metals. But
Oh,
when it
right.
came to the nutritional value, it's like actually there is a nutritional value that goes to this. And I think, I mean, we have to be honest. As a nutritionist myself, I see the nutritional value of some animal products. They have things that are healthy, of course. I mean, those are
Yes.
living beings that have to reproduce and grow, and of course they're going to have the same needs, requirements that we do. They get them from
Hmm.
plants most of the time, actually.
Right.
All animals except carnivores. So, and even them, they eat also some plants. But
Hmm.
they are basically the short cut to not having to make the effort to really see what we should get. But even him, he has children, and when they were young, obviously they were quite rebellious because they grew up in a household where everything was very nutritarian focused, so very
Yeah.
healthy and very strict.
Yeah.
So and they were saying like when we went to our friends' houses, we would not eat the way that we normally eat, and they were always
Hmm.
feeling sick. And
Mm.
eventually they basically went back to the fact that the way they ate at home was the best way. And now, his daughters work with him. One of them is a naturopathic doctor. The other
Hmm.
one works with him on the podcast and on the retreat. Um, so they really circled back to the fact that what they learned as children was very beneficial for them. So I think what you are saying
Absolutely.
here, it's really a par with that, but also very powerful because yeah, I agree with you. Parents tell their children what to eat. I mean, I remember when I was a child, my grandmother and my mother told me if I didn't eat meat, I would shrivel up and die. And
Yeah.
that's telling me what to eat, right? And they were
Right.
putting
Exactly.
animal products in front of me. So I
Yeah.
grew up omnivores, having a
Hmm.
lot of issues actually, just because they didn't know better. But it's they tell you what to eat. So it's really
Exactly.
hypocritical, but it feels like this hypocrisy is always coming up when it comes to vegan, but
Hmm.
not to the general
Exactly.
population.
No one's stopping other people from feeding their children hot dogs, which is,
Mm,
literally on the list of foods that can cause cancer. And I'm like, what? Why is nobody getting backlash for that? But we're getting
yeah.
backlash for feeding our kids fruits and vegetables. Like this is crazy to me.
Yeah, exactly. Um,
And to speak also on the growing up healthy thing, I grew up pretty healthy myself. We weren't really allowed soda, like eating out with special occasions and things like that. And I find myself pretty much the same as what you were saying about Dr. Furman's kids. Like, there definitely have been times when I was out on my own in university and I was like, oh, I can eat whatever I want now. But I obviously have found myself going back to healthy food as just my regular way of life because that is just like what kind of I know, it's like what feels most natural to me, and it's just my go-to, and it obviously makes me feel the best. And so I credit my mom for really giving us kind of that healthy head start. And so that's what I also want for my daughter as well.
I don't think I asked you this last time, but I know you're from California, so I
Yeah.
mean, by proxy, you're healthy. But but what is your background? Your family's background?
You mean
Your
ethnicity
mom?
wise?
Yeah, ethnicity. Yeah.
My mom is like Scottish and maybe like French or something,
Okay.
just general white, like Western European, I would say. And my dad is Italian, Polish.
Oh, amazing. Okay. You know what? I always thought you had some Asian in you, and I mean, it's not just because of your husband, but your
No.
eyes are very, yeah, they are like
Yeah.
almond shape, and
Mhm.
but I love it. I'm also half Italian, so we share that
Oh,
one.
really?
That's fun.
Oh, I
Yeah.
love that.
So we have, yeah, and it's like, it's nice to have this background. But the reason I asked is I wonder if your mom was health conscious because of her background rather than just because she lives in California. And like,
It's a good question. I think it's from her parents, actually. I think her mom had like six kids, but she
Mm,
still raised them pretty healthy, even in when the times were leaner, they didn't have a lot of money.
yeah,
I think that also probably played a factor on people eating healthier.
yeah.
But yeah, she grew up eating a lot of staples like beans and rice and things like that and cooked those for us as well. So I think it just was circumstantial, actually.
Oh, that's awesome. But that's
Yeah.
great. And I love that, you can bring in like different factors as to why when parents are mindful about what we eat, it's just such an imprint
Yes.
on us. I mean, my grandmother used to be cooking for us all the time, and
Mm.
she, I mean, of course, by now standards and my knowledge, like we could have done better in terms of animal products, but she used to do everything from scratch, for the most
Mm.
part. And I think that watching her making food made me fall in love with food and making it, but also just the fact that somebody's actually nurturing you by not just buying something in a package and then putting it in a microwave. We didn't even have microwaves at the time,
Same.
Like, that was a long time ago.
My mom was against it. I always grew up looking at my friends' microwaves. I was like, whoa. My mom's like, no, we will never have one in our house.
Yeah, we never had one. It was like, I mean, in South Africa, we did have like, it was in the house, but like we never used it. And it's like,
Mm.
it's so amazing to, grow up without something that you're like, I mean, even the kettle, like for the water,
Hmm.
we used to boil water on the stove for the
Right?
most part. And then, kettles became more kind of pro but my grandparents were like so traditional and
Yeah,
old fashioned. So they were like, we don't need this. And so you see really the effort that goes in preparing everything.
absolutely.
And it makes a difference. And I think it's also I don't know if you do this with your daughter, like and with your husband, if you have one meal at least a day where you all together as a family.
Yeah. That's important to us. Yeah. And it's lucky that my husband actually works from home. So we usually do lunch together, which is kind of random, but it just fits for our schedule. So we usually do lunch together, sometimes dinner together as well. Dinner's a little bit more chaotic in our house for some reason. My daughter always has the most energy, I feel, in the evenings. So she's like running around and doing stuff. But yeah, we like to eat together. And I think as she gets older, that'll be even more important to kind of like have that family time together and hear how everyone's day is. That's how I grew up. We all shared about our day and we all sat together every single dinner.
Yeah, and this is what I was aiming at. I was like, because a lot of people don't do it anymore, but that was
Mm,
part of, falling in love with food, prepping food, putting it
mm,
together. I think it's also because the outcome of that prep is we sitting together and eating together. And there is something really special about sharing a meal with your family. And
mhm.
as you said, like talking about the day and not having the TV and the phone right there
Right.
because we all getting used to it. I mean, for the most
So
part,
true.
I spend a lot of time alone. So actually, when I eat, I do watch content, and sometimes I'm like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, I need to just be here with the food. It's a
Hmm.
little lonely sometimes because then, I
Yeah.
don't have anybody there, but it's really necessary to just be present with your food. And having that family time offers that kind of
Yeah.
moment where you can be with your food, but also with the people you love. So
Yeah.
you're not distracted as such, but you also, there's a mindfulness that goes into that energetic, and it's not like through a screen that comes at you and talks at you, that you're engaging into it.
I do the same thing as you. If I'm eating by myself, then I'll just automatically turn on my phone. And then sometimes I wonder, like, what, I was born in a generation when there were no smartphones, right? Literally, what, and I didn't used to watch TV while I was eating either because it was just not a part of our household. So I literally wonder, like, what did we used to do? I try and think, like, what did we do all day without phones and TVs on like that, I think we've all just kind of forgotten a little bit of that, those of us who grew up without it. It's just become so automatic and such an everyday part of our lives that I really try and force myself to remember what those days were like and try and go back to like, it's okay. Actually, we did used to read the newspaper a lot. I wish we had like newspapers still delivered to the house because I remember I would always read the newspaper during breakfast. That was like a thing. So like sometimes I'll leave a book or magazine or something close by so at least I have something to kind of do besides just look around, watch my daughter run around something,
I hear you. Um, And okay, let's talk about your that the period that you were not on YouTube and we didn't know what happened, and then you came back and explained. So you had a health scare. How can you just take me through it and talk about what
Sure.
happened exactly?
It was so crazy. I actually I had my bottom two wisdom teeth out when I was a teenager. And then the top two, they told me, you know what, they'll never come down. Don't worry about it. You don't need to get those taken out. And so I didn't. And then, I think a year ago, 2 years ago now, my dentist was like, oh, I can see one of them poking through. You're probably going to need to get that removed. And I said, okay, no problem. I went to see an oral surgeon and he agreed that it wasn't a rush thing. It was like, whenever we'll get it taken out. And then I'm not sure how the infection got through. I don't think that the tooth itself got infected. Like it's still kind of a mystery on how the whole thing transpired, but somehow an infection got through that area and got into my bloodstream. And once it gets into your bloodstream, it can affect other parts of your body. And for me, it went up to my brain and caused a large abscess. At the time, I didn't know. I just suddenly had a toothache and then all of a sudden a headache. And it was a really bad headache. Like even, I hardly ever take pain medication, but when I do, it's like an extra strength Tylenol. And so I was taking like maybe one or two extra strength Tylenols and it wasn't helping. After a few days, I was like, I need to go to the doctor. The doctor was like, oh yeah, if it's infected, we'll just prescribe you some basic, antibiotics.
Yes.
Right. And so I said, okay, I took those and nothing changed. Still persistent headaches. I wasn't feeling at all better. And I was pretty out of it. Like I try and look back on that time and trying to think, was I even eating? Because I like barely remember really how bad it was. I just remember I could barely get out of bed. Like I was really exhausted and bright lights were really intense for me. It was like I needed to be in a dark room. I don't know how I was taking care of my daughter. I was like barely functioning, I feel. But luckily, my friend is an ER nurse, and I was messaging with her, and we were supposed to have a Zoom chat, and I was like, I'm sorry, I can't make it. I just haven't been feeling well, and I told her what's going on, and she said, if you took the antibiotics and you're still not feeling good, this is quite serious. If it's affecting your brain, you should really go to the ER. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm really hospital phobic. I hate getting blood drawn, anything like that. So I didn't want to go, but the fact that I went shows how bad I must have been feeling because I was like, okay, something's got to give. Like this is not normal. So we drove over to the ER and it's like super late at night. I'm exhausted after, having been sick for a week as well. I'm like so exhausted. And then, my husband left me there and took my daughter home. And then I was like, oh yeah, I'll text you to come pick me up. Right. And then, ran a bunch of tests. The doctor was like, had no idea what it was. Cause we're really just a guessing game. She's like, the infection, she thought it was so weird that like I had taken the antibiotics and it was still there. So just randomly, she decided to do a CT scan of my brain. She told me later that she wasn't even going to do it because she didn't think anything of it. And that showed a huge mass there. And she also later told me, I ended up going back to the ER for something else a few weeks later, and I saw that same doctor, and she told me later, she's like, I thought you had a brain tumor. She was like so worried, and she sent me down to this other hospital where they have a brain surgeon who's a specialist here in Toronto, thank goodness. And they, ambulanced me down, and within like a few hours later, I think it was probably like 5 or 6 hours later, I was already going off to have the operation to drain the abscess. Luckily, they did an MRI once I got down to that hospital and confirmed that it was an abscess. That brain surgeon, he definitely knew. He said, this is probably an abscess, but we'll check it out on the MRI. He confirmed it and said, he's done a lot of these in his professional career. So I felt at least safe going through that, even though it was a very, very scary. I mean, I was really out of it, but it's still like when you're signing the paperwork, they're like, this is a very serious surgery. You could definitely die during it. And it's quite an intense operation. They had to like shave off, part of my hair right here. I have like a huge scar under there now. Basically, I woke up, had all these staples in my head, and was like, oh, hey, what's going on, and I was really out of it for like a while after. They had me on very serious antibiotics as well, to kind of make sure that they killed off any infection. I even had an intravenous antibiotic line put into my arm that I had to have my husband give me intravenous antibiotics for like 6 weeks after the operation. It was like the most intense health thing that I've ever experienced, obviously, or even that I've ever like seen someone experience. I've had family members with other health complications. I've never seen something like this, and it was like happening to me. It was very, very intense. I definitely developed some PTSD a little bit from like just the whole experience, and like a little bit of health anxiety, I would say, that I have now just after experiencing it. Every little thing, if I feel something wrong, I'm like, oh my gosh, am I okay? Because I just had no idea that this could happen. And it came on so suddenly. So I just actually had a 1-year post-op MRI follow-up, and the doctor said everything looks clear. The brain healed itself. Basically, once they had the abscess out, everything kind of starts to heal. I think probably, I don't know if it'll ever completely go back to normal in that area, but he said that it's clear enough that they don't need to do any follow-up MRIs. And so all things considered, I'm very, very lucky to come out of it on the other side feeling pretty healthy. I feel like maybe I'll never go 100% back to normal, but I don't know if that's just like other things, like I said, anxiety, or like my age, now that I'm getting a bit older, I'm like, is my eyesight not as good because of the operation, or because I'm a little bit older now? I'm in my 40s. I don't know. So it's hard to say exactly. But I just truly believe that if I eat healthy and really focus on nourishing my body with healthy plants, that I will, be able to change anything that is kind of negative still going on in there. So that's kind of been my thought process going forward, is just maintain healthy lifestyle, and everything will hopefully start to feel better as time goes on.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I know when you talk about it, because you're so upbeat and so positive. It almost doesn't sound like it was,
like life-threatening. I know.
Right? But then
because
actually
I've come
when you think
out,
about it, yeah.
I've come out on the other side, like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, like, I think looking back, the fact that I did almost die, and like any other, if I hadn't gone to the ER right away, things would have been so much worse. I think somebody else in my situation, things could have been so much worse. I attribute the fact that I was pretty healthy going into it, as one of the reasons that I've had such a positive recovery. And, just keeping that like optimistic outlook, I feel like it's just carried me forward. If you had been asking me these questions like 1 month ago or 1 year ago, when I was still in the thick of recovery, I was in a bad place at that time, for sure. So maybe just, having come from there, I have a lot more happiness and joy and everything. And I think that's why I can share the story without breaking down and crying, because during the time when I was in it, it was really intense. But coming out of it, I'm feeling very, very lucky and very blessed.
Can I ask you, and you can say no if you don't want to, but to take you back to the time of recovery or even going through what you learned about what was going on? I mean, that was very quick anyway, because as soon as they found it, they went into the OR. So mostly about the recovery. What was going through your mind? Like, what were you feeling and thinking about?
Oh, I definitely was thinking it could come back, which I've learned that that wasn't realistic. But at the time, a lot of my panic attacks were happening because of that. I had to go to the ER, like I mentioned a couple of times, just because of the IV line got like a little bit bent out of place or whatever. I had to go to the ER for that, and I was panicking going to the ER, thinking, "Oh my gosh, I'm going to end up in surgery again." So a lot of my anxiety had to deal with the fact that, like, suddenly I could be very unwell again out of nowhere.
Yeah. And what is the biggest lesson from this time, you feel?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. Don't wait on if something feels wrong. I wish that I had gone in sooner, and kind of forced myself to get over the fear of like, I was worried that like it wasn't a big deal and that I'd be like bothering people or taking unnecessary resources or whatever by going to get it checked out, when I should have just gone to the ER earlier. So I would say kind of like trust your instincts on going to get stuff checked out. I actually, when I posted the video with this full story about what happened, I had a lot of comments of people saying that I inspired them to go get a tooth taken care of, or go, fix that thing that has been kind of lingering and bugging them. And even myself, I'm very bad about following up with like doctor's appointments. After I turned 40, they recommended to start doing colonoscopies because we have history of colon cancer. My dad had colon cancer at a pretty young age. So my doctor recommended to start at 40 and do every 5 years. So I just had my first colonoscopy, which I really did not want to do. And it was not fun. But you know what? These are things that are like, you kind of just have to do them. And they're preventative, you got to make sure that you're taking care of your health and take care of yourself.
Yeah, that's a good advice. And I mean, I'm sure your colonoscopy results were perfect. With all the
They were. I was so lucky. I said, I think it's
like
because I'm vegan. And they said, there is also a genetic factor about it that everybody, even if you eat perfectly healthy, you should still get it checked if you have any history of colon cancer in your family.
No, fair. But I'm sure they were like, actually, even more so with your genetic predisposition, having a great colon with all the plants is like,
Yes.
the diet has, we know that the diet has so much to do with it. So
Yes.
it's not a mystery. If doctors don't know this, then as you said, I'm really worried that they don't have enough knowledge in certain things, especially nutrition. But I'm hoping that as this become more mainstream, there's no argument here,
Yeah. I know that was something I was very proud when I went in to do the colonoscopy, even when I was like woozy on drugs, because they put you under a little bit, they sedate you a little bit. But I was talking to the nurse and I was like, "Oh, well, I'm vegan." And I started telling her about my YouTube channel and everything. I was like promoting the vegan diet. I was like, "I'm sure the colonoscopy results will be great because I eat so healthy." And they were just laughing.
But it was true though.
True, exactly.
Who's laughing now?
Exactly.
Amazing. And can I ask you, what is your thought on, I mean, I know how you feel about you, but like for taking supplements and with your daughter, would you, when are you considering that could be something that you need to start, or you started already?
We haven't started yet. Her doctor said not till after 2. They usually don't eat. Actually, I think he said like after 3 or 4, to be honest. I am like, I like supplements. So I don't know if I'm the right person to ask about that. I would always advocate for supplements if blood tests show that they're necessary. I would actually push it for my daughter to get a blood test when the doctor says that it's the right time because I want to make sure that she is eating healthy. And if there's a simple way by just looking at her blood test to tell, then why not? My husband is definitely more in the camp of you should eat the whole food, plant based source of those foods to the best of your ability before supplementing. So I think that we would probably focus on that first. And then if it wasn't fixed with foods, like especially iron, I know is a really tricky one for kids because they eat so little. So I'm definitely mindful to kind of try the food sources first. And then if that doesn't work, I have no problem supplementing for her. I know B12 is another one that obviously you can't get from plants. You either need to supplement or have a food that has B12 fortified in it. So I'm definitely mindful of those for her already. And I'll be keeping an eye on it with her doctor for sure.
Yeah, no, and I really appreciate this answer. And the reason I asked is that, again,
Mm,
there's another, even within the vegan space, there is,
mm,
or plant-based space, there is another camp that talks about not taking supplements.
mm,
And, even some doctors. And again, I go back to my education, and, I acknowledge that, of course, I don't know everything. And so what I
mm.
studied, could it be biased? Yes. But I also talking to Brenda Davis, who's also my mentor in a way. Now we are actually
Mm.
creating a show together for YouTube called Nutrition Unpacked that will come out in April.
Oh,
Um,
amazing.
because of so much misinformation. So actually, we already recorded the first episode and we went through the guidelines, the
Oh, good.
nutritional guidelines of the US, and it's like nine pages document. Thank God it wasn't like originally you have a lot more pages than that, but in
Mm.
9 pages, like we looked at everything and we were like, wow. And we are happy also that a lot of other doctors are doing it because this is a conversation that will have to be ongoing because I feel like it's so impactful for the general population who don't understand nutrition, are following the biased guidelines because also it suits a bias too, like their own bias, right? Like, oh, eat more
Yes.
meat, great, I love to do that, right? So I'm gonna follow those are great guidelines. Or
Mm.
even there are doctors in women's health, and I focus on women's health, that would say you need to have animal products and no grains. And although with the grains, I do acknowledge that some women work better than others. Like for example, I
Mhm.
take myself, I don't work very well with grains,
Mm.
but I don't think they're bad. Like scientifically speaking and nutritionally speaking, they if you are having whole grains, then you actually they're part of a healthy diet. And instead, this new guidelines demonizes them too, like have very little
Interesting.
or none at all. And it's very confusing online. Then we have
Right.
the spikes, glucose spikes thing. Oh,
Right.
exhausting.
Another time, I would like to hear your thoughts on glucose goddess, but we could talk about
Oh,
that
I
later.
can give you my thought on glucose goddess even now, if you want to really hear it. Um,
Sure.
I mean, she's obviously educated. She's not
Mm.
uneducated. So
Mm.
I think, for that, I actually don't appreciate the misinformation she's sharing because for
Okay.
somebody that has education, she should know better. I think
Mm.
and she's not stupid. So I think here we're talking about somebody that has taken her own experience and made a case for it
Mm.
as if it was really a randomized control study, which is not.
I see.
And she's very much profiting from this. So
Mm.
for me, the evidence is this. A colleague of mine had her supplements on his desk.
Okay.
And I talked to him and I was like, can I just see this? And I'm looking at this and I see the ingredients. We're talking broccoli, we're talking sprouts, we're talking things that she promoted as being something you should have before your meal to control your blood glucose spikes.
Mm.
And I'm like, those are foods and they are full of fiber. So why are we having these supplements which cost a lot of money, making you a lot of money? And all we need to say is have whole foods, have the fiber. I
Mm.
also don't appreciate this. It's like for me, we have to take stands. Like if we know that something is healthy, we are going to talk about, look, this is everybody makes their own choices when it comes to food. You choose whatever you want. But when I am not going to say, have your sprouts, and then if you want, have your pain au chocolat. Like you can
Mm.
have your pain au chocolat, but having the fiber, having the healthy food before doesn't make pain au chocolat healthy.
Right.
So the reality, you know what I mean? Just because your glucose doesn't spike as much because you now had fiber before,
Mm,
that food that you are having now, you're thinking you can have it because you just had fiber, it's not healthy.
I see.
So where is the standard? So
Right.
I think the misinformation she started is obviously she's getting, as I said, she's making a lot of money out of this. She's
Mm,
making a lot of money with supplements, right, which are useless because you can have fiber. And I'm not talking about resistant starches that you can buy. Like Dr. Will Bolsowitz has created a product that has these starches for people that are really having to heal their gut and support
mm,
it. It's very
hmm.
different though, because he doesn't say you should have this at every meal and will, this is actually really to focus on healing the gut and giving these prebiotics to the body so that more microbes can grow from it if your diet is
Mm,
deficient in something and if
right.
you need to recuperate or build versus something that is like take it at every meal because this is the only way you're not going to get a spike. A spike is a very normal physiological response to eating food, especially when
Mm,
it contains more starches and carbohydrates that are starchy. So the body knows exactly what to do. It's like a signal to tell your pancreas we need a little bit of insulin to bring this glucose into the cell so that the mitochondria can create energy, ATP, and not stay into the
mm,
blood, right?
right.
Now, the problem arises when people eat a very poor diet where the spikes do this in the sense that there is no fiber, there is no
Right.
nutrients, just processed, refined carbohydrates. And of course, you have the sugar load, and then the pancreas has to make an effort to push more insulin out. The insulin has to knock at the cells' doors to open up
Mm,
for the glucose. And then at some point, the cells are like, whoa, no mas.
yeah.
And
Right.
then, and then it becomes the problem because now you're going to have to send this somewhere because you can't keep it in the blood. So you start gaining fat into the muscle cells and so on. So she has taken this very normal physiological approach without the nuisance of when it matters and when it doesn't. So everybody's walking around with CGMs now. They're all
Yeah.
paranoid about glucose. And as a woman in my 40s as well, I think, yeah, it's good to sometimes measure, so you
Mm,
know the impact of your food if you're on a healthy diet, not if you're
right.
eating junk, because of course when you're
Right.
eating junk, you're gonna see this and this and this, and it's gonna get
Yeah.
better if you don't eat it anymore. Like,
Right. Yes.
so you can notice, you can understand to learn about your body so that you know when, even if you have very low glucose in the morning, that's not good either. You want to
Right.
have
Right. Right.
low glucose, but not like below 100. But if you are below 60 now, what are we talking about here? Like, we have to be
Mm,
mindful of all these things. And without a support of a medical doctor, like, I feel
mm,
like it's the wild, wild west. And then she's
right.
taking advantage of it. So this is my
Yeah.
opinion on the glucose goddess. And I had an interview with someone else who has type 1 diabetes and also doesn't appreciate what this woman is sharing.
Interesting.
So yeah,
Mm.
I'm not a fan.
Well, people are always looking for that quick fix too, right? So I think for her to sell that kind of an idea of like, oh, you just do this, and then, like you said, you can eat whatever you want. It's very misleading, and
Very
people will jump onto
misleading.
that because they're like, ah, that's all I have to do, no problem, right?
Yeah, it's the same conversation with the oils, like you were talking.
Right.
We acknowledge that, yeah, oils are processed. We want to have them as part of, like, you don't have to have them, they're not essential. And
Hmm.
also, but they equally, uh, they're not something to demonize. Like, we know the benefits of olive oils because of the polyphenols and the antioxidants. Great. And you know what? Canola oil was shown to actually have the same benefits as olive oil, but now there's a camp that calls them poison and toxins. And it's
Mm,
like, in which context,
right.
In
Very good
processed
point.
foods? Yeah, I'm sure it's not just, yes, and it's not just the oil that is the problem.
Excellent point.
You
Yes, that's
know,
so true.
it's all those kind of conversations, which is why I don't like and I don't do short format because I think you need to
Mm,
give a really long-winded reply to questions to people because it's nuisance and we
mm.
can't. I would love to have a magic wand and be like, "Toop, done." It doesn't exist,
Exactly.
it just can't. And this is why I also appreciate your channel because it's it's a format that is digestible, I pun intended, digestible and nurturing and inspiring. And it's like, look, these are the foods you can make. I want to make your life easier. I want you to have healthier food. It's for you, it's for your future. And it's fun, and it's also a
Mhm.
way to make it convenient because how do we it's unfair that convenient food is actually always unhealthy if you have to buy it out, you know?
Right, right. Yeah. They need to make convenience healthier, right? Like
And
those convenience
cheaper.
options. Yeah, and cheaper. Oh
Actually, this
gosh,
is my
don't give
next
me
question.
credit.
That segues me my question.
Mm.
Obviously, you're a content creator as well as a mom and wife, and cooking and preparing.
Mm.
How are you navigating these skyrocketing prices?
Oh gosh, not well. I need to do, it's on my list of videos to make, is some budget friendly meal preps and some really stretching your dollar further. Because I can tell you our grocery budget used to be around, four to $500 a month Canadian. And now I swear I'm spending like $800 a month. And it's crazy. And I'm like, I've added in a baby, but she doesn't eat a lot of food, like that's not really that's not the reason that it's going up that much, It's just because even things like produce that have always been very inexpensive are so expensive right now. And like tofu, things like that, luckily we have a Costco membership and can still get tofu at a good price. I don't often buy produce there because it's not the best price. I've had to look for other options. Like I'll mention, occasionally we get a produce delivery box called Odd Bunch, and they have similar things in the US. They have one called Misfits Market, and usually they have those the produce at a little bit of a lower price because they find things that are not sellable or not as beautifully cosmetically in the grocery stores. So they sell it to these other retailers at a lower price, and they sell it to us at the lower price as well. So options like that are good if you have community supported agriculture programs, the CSA boxes in your area. I always recommend those. My mom does one, of course, in California. They have a lot of options. So she's in California. She does one locally, and not everything that comes is organic, which would be her preference, but it's locally grown, which I've heard is also maybe more important than always reaching for the organic label. If organic isn't an option, look for something that's grown locally. That can also save a little bit of money as well. When you're looking at the grocery store, I try and buy things that are in season instead of like just what we're craving, because if it's in season, it's likely a little bit cheaper. Some of the staples, like things like onions and bananas, things like that, luckily never really go up in price. Their price increase is very, very minimal. So I kind of stick to those inexpensive staples. Kids go through a lot of fruit. That's what parents are always complaining about. So I try and get like the more economical option. I'll get frozen a lot of times for her and just reheat it or defrost it and let her eat that instead of a fresh one. She ate so much frozen fruit at the beginning of her life. She basically didn't know what a fresh blueberry tasted like because it's just so expensive. For like the first few months of her starting solids, it was just like, you'll get that later. I'd rather buy the organic, less expensive frozen option and just to save that fresh stuff for when it's in season, and a little bit cheaper as well. So yeah, it's a struggle for sure. I need to make some content based around that. That's what I've found in Canada. How about what have you found? Same?
So prices have definitely gone up
Mm-hmm.
in Portugal. I'm gonna speak for Portugal. I know different countries in
Mm-hmm.
Europe have different prices. Here we are kind of lucky because
Mm-hmm.
Portugal produces a lot, and
Mm-hmm.
we managed to find a lot of produce that is inexpensive, but prices have gone up, especially if you
Yep.
want to add in like specific ingredients, like even nutritional yeast, like
Yep.
or tamari, or like
Mm-hmm.
some things have gone up and unnecessarily, but I mean, I say unnecessarily as in, it's really a pain. But rice I've noticed has gone up. I don't need it, but I do sometimes check the prices. Oats have gone
Mm.
up.
Oh, it's a fun app.
I'm,
Chocolate. If you eat chocolate at all.
chocolate. Chocolate has gone up. The cacao has gone through the roof.
It's
Through the
crazy.
roof.
It's crazy. Yeah,
The
I have a
price.
Costco haul video
I saw it.
from
I saw it.
from 2020 where the chocolate chips were $15 and
Yeah,
now
and
they're
now 40,
$40.
yes, I saw that video of yours, and it's like,
Mm,
what? But I definitely think that Northern America has been hit harder especially the
Mm,
US. I honestly don't know much about the prices in Canada. I trust you, it's gonna double, but I think in the US we're talking more than that.
yeah. Mhm.
Because again, I think when I started following even Erin and Dusty and they were shopping, their bill was not was nothing north of $200 a week. And now I've seen some of the latest content where we're talking almost 500 a week
Oh my gosh, per week?
per week.
Oh my gosh. Well, they do have three kids.
They do have three
They got a
kids,
lot of
yes,
kids,
and
but
that's the
yeah,
difference.
yeah,
But they
still,
don't cook, but they cook very simple,
right?
delicious food. They don't use a lot of I think they eat a lot of very staple food that is
Right.
not very expensive, like beans and rice and quinoa. But those things have gone up massively. Thank you,
Hmm.
Trump. Another
I
one.
know, right? And meanwhile, other industries that are subsidized, like meat and dairy, those prices are still affordable. So of course, there's going to be, people who they're hesitant to try out a plant-based diet just because now it truly is getting expensive. We used to say back 5, 6 years ago, like it's much cheaper. And if you do buy beans and rice and those kinds of staples, overall, it is going to be cheaper still, even than meat. Thankfully. But yeah, just like some produce that it's so unbelievably expensive now.
Yeah. Here, I must say, animal products are expensive,
Mhm.
or
I haven't checked, to be
comparable
honest.
to in Europe, but in Portugal anyway. But so is tofu, which was never like
Right?
400 grams of tofu. It's actually this is cheap probably, but 1.99, €1.99. So actually really affordable.
Mm,
But in the past it was like even less than that. So
yeah.
actually, yeah, no, buying tofu here is still cheaper than
Mm,
buying animal products, which is good. The problem is, and I think is everywhere in the world, is a cultural attachment to certain foods because we have
definitely.
been told that they're superior in terms of nutrients. So people will
Hmm.
look at tofu and think, well, what am I getting here? Is like this like chewy, non-tasty thing versus I can have a steak. Okay, it's more expensive,
Right.
but it's a steak.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's like we're trying to change the mind, like the mindset of people, and
Hmm.
understanding the truth behind actually some certain claims and so on. It's work in progress. I mean, I work with the municipality of the city where I live in. Well, I started this project out of the blue, no organization whatsoever. I'm just like, I still have to actually, I'm about to open a charity with it, like a non-for-profit,
Mm,
which is a
mm,
nightmare because I don't understand the paperwork. But, I'm like, let's just start doing a market that is focused on plants, from the products to the food, and try to really educate people. And even then, I actually found out that some of the sellers were using bee wax. And I was like, beeswax, I
oh,
know
no.
it's great for skincare. I really
Yeah.
understand it, but it's not vegan.
Right.
And so I had to like start educating them about actually choosing things that, and I mean, I made a mistake too. I took a product that I was gonna endorse. I endorsed it for
Mm.
a month. I didn't realize it had beeswax until
Oh
later.
no,
I was
it
mortified. I was
happens.
like,
It happens all the time. Like you get used to, just scanning the label or whatever, and maybe I don't always check ingredients as carefully as when I first went vegan.
yeah,
And sometimes I'll be like, oh my gosh, this has milk in it, put it back,
yeah,
whatever,
yeah,
right? You just
yeah.
have to remind yourself to kind of check once in a while.
Definitely, especially with things like skincare, where like you
Yeah.
don't think, but yeah.
Yeah.
So definitely prices. We should definitely keep on having a look. But if you do content around that, I think it would be helpful because
Hmm.
it is getting out of control. But you mentioned rightfully that there are some staples that are very nourishing as well that are still inexpensive. So if people want to really bulk up, I mean, of course, if you buy canned chickpeas versus dry chickpeas, it's going to be a massive difference.
Yeah.
So, buy the dried one. Yes, it's more effort to soak them
Hmm.
and cook them, but that dollar will stretch, right? As you
Yeah.
said.
One of the best investments of cookware I have made is my instant pot because I did used to cook beans from dried on the stovetop and it takes forever and you have to babysit it. You have to soak them in advance. It's so much more effort. You can get an instant pot for like $70 or $80. It's not very expensive. I've had mine for 6 years now and it still works perfectly well. So I would say, and I used it literally every single week, if not multiple times a week, to cook beans, grains, rice, and beans. You can even do veggies in there. It's really great for cooking. You can put a whole squash in there and just steam it and cut it up. It's delicious. The Instant Pot is Absolutely, my favorite kitchen appliance.
Yeah, I have one too, and I agree. And that's I actually managed to get one that was refurbed even because they're
Oh,
more
nice.
expensive here in Europe than the US, but
Mm,
not much, but a little bit.
mm.
But I got one that was refurbed for 114 euro, which has an air fryer part to it too.
Oh, nice.
So I'm like,
How do you
this
like
is
the
a
air fryer
bargain.
function?
Yeah,
Does it work
yeah,
well?
yeah. It works really well. I
I
mean, I
love
can't
that.
compare it to anything else. I don't have an air fryer, but that one it works really well. I mean, things are crispy.
Oh, that's awesome. I've looked at those. I was wondering if it was worth it. That's
Yeah, no, it's
cool.
good. And so it does that, it does the grilling as well because the same
Mm,
hat has got the grill. So
love that.
yeah, it's such a nice one. It's a perfect rounded tool, actually. I really
Mm,
like it as
mm,
well.
yeah.
Well,
And it saves
Maddie.
you a lot of money when you're cooking all those beans.
Yes, and so much effort. I mean, you make your
Yes.
own, you make so many different even oat porridges in there, from
Yep.
different grains, which was nice.
Yeah.
And again, people have to come and check your YouTube channel because it actually has so many nuggets that really help,
Yeah.
especially families when they don't have time
Thank you.
to prepare. So I know that we ran out of time, so I just want to say thank you so much for
Mm,
your time, you being a mom, being busy. Thank you for
mm,
sharing. Thank you for carrying on with the channel and preparing. I hope that you start doing your courses again soon as
thank you.
well.
Yeah, I love to.
And yeah, you're really a nice voice of YouTube sphere where it's plus you have a beautiful voice. I love listening to you, but it's really nice to just get that content that is helpful, inspiring, and clean and non-judgmental. I
Mm.
absolutely love it. Like I look forward to the weekend when your videos come
Aw.
out.
Thank you so much. That is so sweet of you to say. I hope it's helpful. I want to be able to help people eat more plants. So that's my mission. And I'm so appreciative of you for having me on the podcast. This has been great. Again,
Thank you.
our
Yeah.
second one. I love it. Thank you so much for having
Yeah,
me.
we'll do more. We'll have to do some maybe some YouTube lives.
Sounds good.
Cool. Thank you, Maddie.
Thank you.
Bye. Maddie, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I was so delighted to speak to you and catch up and hear everything you're doing and all the wonderful chat we had about life in general and also everything that's happening in the world with prices skyrocketing and how we're going to navigate this to feed ourselves healthily. And also thank you for sharing your story with your health scare because I think it's wonderful that I really believe that having a proper diet that supported you nutritionally really helped to also navigate a very difficult time. So thank you so much for being this bright light in the world. And guys, if you don't know Maddie, again, you can check out our first episode together a couple years ago, as well as her channel, which is amazing on YouTube. Without asking too much of you, please do leave some nice reviews and share with friends. Help us navigate this algorithm which doesn't love small channels so that we can really thrive and get more amazing speakers onto the podcast and share a little bit more about things that you want to hear about. Much love.